The courtroom was alive with its usual hum of activity, papers shuffling, attorneys whispering to their clients, and the steady clicking of a stenographer's keys filling the air. Judge Raymond adjusted his robe as he entered, the bailiff's voice booming, "All rise." With practiced calm, Raymond took his seat behind the bench, his gavel striking once to command silence. He glanced down at the docket, expecting another ordinary case in a long week of trials. Fraud, white-collar crime, nothing unusual. His eyes moved mechanically, scanning the details before lifting to see the defendant for the first time. And then, time seemed to freeze. The man standing before him in handcuffs wasn't just another name on a file. The face, though older and weathered, was unmistakable. Judge Raymond's breath caught in his throat, his composure wavering for the briefest second. He knew this man, not from court, not from law school, but from the dusty playgrounds of his childhood. It was Daniel, his best friend from a lifetime ago. Daniel's posture was tense, his wrists bound in cold steel, but when his eyes met the judge's, something flickered, recognition. Raymond's chest tightened. He saw not just the man standing in custody, but the boy from his past. Suddenly, he was 10 years old again, racing down cracked sidewalks with Daniel, their laughter echoing against brick walls. He remembered how Daniel used to sneak extra sandwiches from home, even when he barely had enough himself, just so Raymond wouldn't go hungry. He remembered scraped knees, whispered secrets, and the oath they once made, best friends forever, no matter what. But forever hadn't lasted. One day, Daniel was gone. Rumors spread, his family moved, some said, others whispered darker stories about trouble with the law. Raymond had never found out the truth. Until now. Here he was, 20 years later, in a courtroom of all places, facing the same boy who once swore to have his back. Only this time, Raymond was the judge, and Daniel was the accused. The prosecutor's voice rang out sharp and clear, painting Daniel as a cunning manipulator who had orchestrated an elaborate fraud scheme. Charts were displayed, documents stacked high, each detail carefully chosen to brand him guilty in the eyes of the jury. Raymond sat motionless, his face carved into the mask of neutrality a judge was sworn to wear. But beneath the robe, beneath the years of discipline, memories clawed their way to the surface. He didn't just see an accused man, he saw the boy who once shielded him from trouble. A particular memory struck like a hammer. They were 16, caught sneaking into the school gym after hours. It had been Raymond's idea, but when the principal demanded answers, Daniel had stepped forward, taking the blame without hesitation. That one choice changed everything. Daniel was suspended, his reputation stained. Raymond had walked away clean, his path to law school intact. Now, watching his childhood friend stand accused of crimes that could destroy his life, guilt pressed heavy against his chest. He couldn't help but wonder how much of Daniel's fate had been written the day he took the fall for him. The defense attorney rose, his tone measured but firm, insisting that Daniel was not the villain the prosecution made him out to be. He laid out evidence of a different story, one where Daniel's own business partner had orchestrated the fraud and pinned it all on him. Documents were shown, emails read aloud, each one raising more doubt in the jury's mind. The neat, polished image painted by the prosecutor began to crack. A juror shifted uneasily in her seat, another crossed his arms tighter, their faces betraying uncertainty. Through it all, Daniel never once took his eyes off Raymond. It wasn't defiance, nor was it desperation, it was something quieter, deeper. A silent plea, not for favoritism, but for fairness. For the truth to matter. Raymond gripped his gavel a little tighter, his pulse quickening. His mind screamed at him to remain impartial, but his heart remembered the boy who had once trusted him with his life. Was he capable of being just a judge today, or was the weight of their past clouding his judgment? The trial had built to a fever pitch. Witness after witness had testified, each statement either weaving the net tighter around Daniel or tugging it apart. The jury leaned forward, hungry for clarity, their notes filling with scribbles and question marks. Then the defense attorney rose once more, announcing a surprise witness. A hush fell over the room as the doors opened, and in walked the man who had first accused Daniel, his business partner. The very man the prosecution had relied on as their foundation. The partner took the stand with an air of confidence, but under the sharp edge of cross-examination, his story began to unravel. Dates didn't match, details conflicted, and his once smooth testimony turned brittle under pressure. Sweat beaded on his forehead as the defense pressed harder, exposing contradiction after contradiction. The jury's eyes widened. Whispers swept through the benches like a rising storm. For the first time, Daniel's shoulders lifted ever so slightly, the weight of false guilt beginning to slip away. Raymond kept his face still, but inside his heart pounded like a drum. The truth was clawing its way to the surface, threatening to upend everything. If Daniel was innocent, as it now seemed, then he had spent years carrying a burden that wasn't his to bear. And Raymond realized with a jolt, the boy who once saved him might finally be saving himself. The air inside the courtroom was heavy, every breath from the jury seeming to echo against the walls. When the foreman finally stood, holding the verdict slip, time seemed to slow. Raymond's fingers drummed softly against the bench, his face calm but his chest aching with anticipation. The words rang out clear, "Not guilty." A ripple surged through the room, gasps, murmurs, even a cry of relief from someone in the back row. Daniel closed his eyes, his chest rising and falling as if he had been holding his breath for years and could finally exhale. Tears welled up, but he quickly blinked them away, trying to maintain his dignity in front of the world that had nearly destroyed him. Raymond's gavel struck once to restore order, his voice steady though his throat tightened. "This court is adjourned." He rose from his seat, towering above the courtroom in his robe, yet feeling smaller than he ever had in his life. Later, in the quiet corridor outside, the two men faced each other for the first time in decades without the barrier of a bench or the weight of authority between them. No guards, no jury, no attorneys, just Raymond and Daniel. For a long moment, neither spoke. Raymond searched for words, apologies that could bridge 20 lost years, explanations that could erase mistakes neither of them could undo. But Daniel simply gave a faint, weary smile, the kind that spoke of pain endured and bonds unbroken. Raymond nodded, just once, his eyes shining. Daniel returned the gesture. No speeches, no dramatics, only the silent acknowledgement of two lives that had been separated by fate and reunited by truth. And in that silence, both men knew, their story was not over.